We here at Joe Kubert's World of Cartooning want to thank you for taking part in this course. Listen carefully to Joe's tips and instructions and apply these ideas to your own work. And now, here's Joe.
Hi. Welcome to my studio. This is where I work. This is the place I like being the most. I hope you enjoy drawing as much as I do. Yeah, I know sometimes it's tough. Sometimes the drawing doesn't come out precisely the way you'd like. But if you want to improve your drawing, I'm here to help you. You, however, have to make the effort. I'll be with you every step of the way, and we'll both watch your drawings improve as we go along. So, get your video and your workbook, set them up, and let's get started. Cartooning goes back hundreds of years. Even the great masters like Michelangelo did cartoons. That is, a series of illustrations that tell a story. The Egyptians used hieroglyphics to tell of their history. American Indians used petroglyphs, drawings on stone. Storytelling in picture form goes further back than that, to the time of the caveman. They decorated cave walls with ritual hunting scenes, animal stampedes. Those were our earliest cartoonists. To begin with, you'll need to set yourself up a workplace so that it's both comfortable and convenient. Set up your drawing surface, whether it's a table or a lapboard, so that it's at a 90-degree angle from your eyes. If it is not at this 90-degree angle, your drawings will seem distorted. If you don't have a drawing table or even a lapboard to start working with, use the carton that your lessons came with. Just set it up on your lap and draw on that. Remember now, keep your materials neat and near at hand. Keep your sketch paper close by so that should you need it, you've got it. Also, I keep all my references handy in files like this. Set up your VCR where it can be easily seen and where you can operate it, because you're going to need it to constantly refer back and forth between the workbook and the video. That's the way you're going to get the most out of this course. You'll find that there is a blank sheet of drawing paper inserted between each lesson page in your course book. In addition, you'll need plenty of plain, letter-sized bond and tracing paper for practice. Remember to do all your rough sketching on practice paper before you put your finished drawing on the 2-ply boards provided for your homework. As you finish each of the lessons in this course, you'll be sending them in to us, one at a time, for review, instructive criticism, and a lot of encouragement. Send in only the special homework page, because no other sketches or drawings will be reviewed. The homework page goes into the pre-addressed mailer, and it will be returned to you with our comments the same way. We will only review your work in sequence. That is, Lesson 1 must be completed and returned before we'll deal with Lesson 2. It's essential for you to review our comments and instructions on one lesson before you tackle the next. Cartoonists are storytellers. Penciling is the first step in telling a story in graphic form. Story scripts for comic books are done in different ways. For example, this one is written like a movie script. It describes the number of panels or boxes on each page. Each panel contains a description. That is for the artist to know what the scene is about. It also contains the dialogue, which is the balloons, captions, and sound effects. Some writers will block out a story in this manner using stick figures, indicating the story's flow from panel to panel. This script usually contains text as well. If you write your own story, don't try to combine the writing and the drawing at the same time. Either your writing or your drawing will suffer if you try to do that. Instead, concentrate on one job at a time. Do your writing first, as if you were writing for someone else to illustrate. Include all the details. Don't figure you'll remember all you intend to do when the time comes to draw. Finish the writing, then get into the drawing, and you'll find this procedure really works. Your art kit contains all the basic needs for penciling. Use the 3H lead for roughing out your drawing. Work loosely. Build your drawing. Use the 2H for detailing. Don't press down too hard, or you'll put indentations on your paper. What I'm doing now is merely blocking out the figure, just getting some rough lines down, and just getting a sense of the movement of the figure, sense of the proportions and foreshortening, and the character itself, what the character is supposed to be doing. This is a GI. That's what I have in mind. He's a soldier. So that I want to put some movement into this illustration and still retain all the elements of proper anatomy, proper proportion, proper foreshortening. I'm building the drawings from where I want to place the hands, how I want him to be holding the rifle. All of these are important to have in mind as I'm drawing. Light and shadow also plays an important part. You see, what I'm doing here is strictly linear, but in my mind, I'm already thinking of where the light source is going to be. What I'm doing is giving myself lines to show where a leg is coming forward, where an arm is coming forward, and where a leg might be receding. These circular lines that I've put down also tend to give me a three-dimensional feeling about the figure rather than a flat drawing. Remember, when you're drawing a head or a face or a helmet, putting a helmet on a soldier, there's a front to it, but there's also a back, and you've got to get the feeling that that helmet is going completely around the head upon which it's worn. It's also important to know that you've got to draw through things. You've got to see where the head will fit inside that helmet. If you don't make that adjustment, then very often you'll find that the drawing that you've done looks like the hat is sitting on top of the head. I don't erase at this point. By slightly darkening the finish lines, those construction lines fade more and more. Every part of a drawing is important. Every part of a drawing is important. It doesn't make the background less important. It is merely relegated to its proper place in the drawing. And it gives a sense of the drawing looking correct. It's a good idea to use the 3H, which is a slightly harder pencil, for the construction, for the sub-construction of the figure, and a 2H or an HB pencil for the finishing details. But in either case, don't press into your drawings. Don't press into the paper. You want to draw lightly enough so that should you have an error or should you want to make a correction, your erasing won't leave indentations in the paper. If you tend to work too hard, or if you tend to use too soft a pencil, then that graphite that builds up on the paper surface as a result of the drawing will also keep the ink from sinking into that paper. You will find that when you erase the pencil marks, the ink will come up as well, because the ink has been sitting on the surface of that graphite. Making mistakes is not an inconsolable thing. I'm erasing this now because that shadow is incorrect. That shadow was to the right of the face, and it should have been to the left, following the pattern of all the other shadows on this figure. The finalization, the actual final part of the drawing, is the inking. All the pencil work that you see will disappear. It won't be there at all. The sketch line that I've made is enough for me to follow when I ink it. To pencil effectively, you've got to know how to draw. To improve your drawing, copy artwork that you admire. Analyze the work as you copy. You want to learn from copying. That's what every artist has done from the time of Michelangelo and Da Vinci, and they weren't too bad either. When you start to pencil, start with a loose, sketchy line. Don't start with details. Building a drawing is like building a house. You don't put in doors and windows before you've done the foundation. In this particular case, what I'm doing is taking just a section of drawing, because I'm not looking to reproduce the drawing per se. What I'm looking to do is to kind of try to analyze this drawing, to try and find out what this artist attempted to do, and see how I can incorporate what this artist is doing into my own work, because in essence, that's what every artist does, and that is that you learn from those who have gone before you. What I'm doing now is sketching out the underdrawing that this artist must have gone through in achieving the great painting that he did. I'm also finding out how the tricep, which is the muscle behind the arm, fits into the bicep, which is the muscle on top of the arm, how that works from underneath, and perhaps incorporate into my own drawing some essence of what this artist did. Check perspective in your drawing. I use a grid for this purpose, so that the figures and the objects I draw aren't floating in the air. This is a normal kind of a perspective, and I want to put a figure of that height, standing in perspective in the room. I will start blocking out where that figure will be and give some lines of perspective in that figure. For instance, that's where the shoulder line would be. And the bottom of the chest cavity is parallel to the floor lines. That's where the waist is. The legs will come down, but now the distance between the top of the head and the bottom varies, because the legs have to be set up in line with the perspective of the grid that I put down. All of these lines, you'll notice, are parallel to one another. If any of these lines were out of whack, then that figure would not be standing on the floor. Now, if I were to do a figure in the distance, I follow the lines, the perspective lines that I put down. The figure in the distance would be smaller because it's further away. Keep a sketchbook handy with you at all times. Sketch new ideas and things you see. Don't worry about style. A graphic story can be told in a variety of different art styles. Simple or humorous, exaggerated or super real. Practice, and your ability to draw will improve. Cartoonists are called upon to draw the most incredible things, other worlds, horror, monsters, aliens, any subject a writer's mind can conjure. But these subjects must be drawn in a believable manner. To achieve credibility, place these objects in a recognizable, legitimate location. Reference should be telling you what the entire subject is about. That's why also it's important to see the front, back, sides, and top and bottom of a piece of reference, whatever it is. Sometimes I will take one part of one picture of a castle and combine it with another if it works into my composition or if I feel it's more effective. So analyzing the reference material that we use is equally as important as using the reference itself. Reference should be an aid. Reference material should be an asset. And my feeling is that if you allow the reference to dictate to you how much of it you can use, you're not really using it properly. If backgrounds look phony, the characters will look phony. The most imaginative situation is credible if the location looks real. Start your own personal reference clip file. Cut pictures of cars, animals, objects, buildings, machinery, from newspapers and magazines. Put them into folders or large envelopes. File them alphabetically. You'll be using your clip files over and over again. Every professional cartoonist has his own file. The more you add to it, the more valuable it becomes to you. Light and shadow give a drawing solidity and dimension. First, determine a light source. Lighting should be consistent throughout each illustration. It may change from panel to panel, but not within a panel. Contrast will direct the eye to a specific spot in a drawing. Design your compositions so that the viewers will look at the parts of the drawing you want them to look at first. Light's coming from that direction, throwing a shadow over the face because of the tipped hat. Shadow's a little darker in the recesses of the face. Underneath the chin is a little darker. Notice that all the shadows I'm putting down are consistent. They're all falling behind the man. That part of his figure would be in shadow. That part of the arm would be in shadow. There would be more shadow on the arm bent from the elbow to the wrist than there would be from the shoulder to the elbow because of the way that light is hitting. If I started drawing the barrel with the shadow on this side, it may look pretty good, but there are still two distinct units. There are separations between these characters. There'd be no shadow, of course, or very little shadow on the cat. Now the shadows are pretty consistent on this guy who's sitting in the chair. Now to make the whole drawing tie together and look right, I'd have to erase the shadow either on the man or on the barrel. So I get my old trusty magic rub out, erase the shadows, erase the incorrect shadows. That's why God made erasers. Redraw the barrel. Put the shadow on the other side, consistent with the light that's hitting the man. Now I throw a shadow of the man on the barrel. And on the floor, hitting the barrel. There's a shadow now on the other side of the barrel, consistent with the light source. Now notice how the man and the barrel, just that shadow area on the barrel has caused him to become almost one unit. Now when I throw that shadow on the cat, it becomes more consistent with the entire illustration. And so the three units, the man, the barrel, and the cat, become one unit. Shadows always fall away from the light source. Look at this egg, a basic oval shape. The shadow gives it a three-dimensional quality. Shadows are not always solid or flat black. Reflected light will lighten an otherwise dark shadow. Spotting blacks as a result of shadows or dark objects add weight to a drawing. It also helps in separating objects and achieving a feeling of depth. As a suggestion now, place a mirror near you and aim a flashlight at your face. Shine the light from different angles. See how the shadows can actually set a mood? Now, draw what you see. We comic book cartoonists are actually dramatists who convey emotion through graphics. It means you have to dig into yourself, your own feelings, to endow your drawings with emotional and physical responses. Sadness reflects itself in an entire figure as well as facial expressions. In varying degrees, this is true of all human emotions. In order to draw emotions, I think that the artists have to pull these emotions deep from your own recesses. And that's not an easy thing to do. You've got to kind of feel the drawing that you're doing. I'm doing a drawing of somebody who is undergoing some emotional stress, sorrow or depression. And what I've done is I've got him holding his head with both hands crossed and his shoulders are really bent. Instead of my putting his legs straight down, I felt that it would add to the feeling of emotion by actually locking his knees almost in a protective posture while his legs are spread apart. You notice I've kind of pigeon-toed his feet so that it gives him more of a sense of balance or more of a sense of control. But nevertheless, he is feeling this heavy, abject sorrow. I hope that that's conveyed in the drawing that I've done. Now, another emotion is anger. And if somebody is standing next to you and making accusations of what a terrible person you are or the terrible deed that you've done, he'd be standing there with his legs spread apart. He would be accusatory. So he's got his arm on his waist and his other hand, his other arm is out, and he is pointing and kind of confirming why that sad person should be feeling as sad as he is. Sometimes an emotion may be inferred with more effectiveness than if it were drawn in complete detail. A feeling of sadness or defeat from the back of a figure, leaving more to the viewer's imagination, may be more impactful. What I'm going to be doing is drawing a figure that is really fearful. Back of the head lowered into the shoulders a little bit, perhaps the face turned away from the action, and perhaps this right arm covering the face a little bit. And here again, the perspective on the legs become really, really important. to get a feeling of depth and space. All I'm doing now is just trying to get a sense of the figure before I get any kind of details as far as the anatomy is concerned. This left hand I'm going to have going out and the gesture of defense. Perspective and foreshortening becomes extremely important to getting a feeling of roundness in an arm, roundness in the body. And these concentric circles that I put down here, they are indications to me of the perspective that I want to interject in the character itself. Then it's just a matter of building, getting the feeling of the character. That's the tough part. But now let's see if I want to do a figure from the back that's really highly elated. Happiness to me is a feeling of elation that bursts from the center of the figure. And it's not a defensive or protective position, but it's actually opening. I mean, when you're happy, you kind of open yourself up to the whole world. So I'm doing the fingers open as well as the arms, and I'm arching the back. And the legs are straight rather than bent in a protective gesture. And I may decide that it would be better to even have him jumping up and down, dancing with happiness. The cartoonist is akin to a movie director. We not only select the actor to play the part, we create the actor and tell him how to play the part. Physical makeup and costuming are important. The original silent movie version of The Hunchback of Notre Dame had the actor wear painful facial and physical makeup to make the character of Quasimodo credible. We cartoonists can create these impressions with our drawings, costumes and backgrounds, reference and research. The impact is in the details. Think time, place, and climate when creating a story setting. Does the story occur in a cemetery, or a jail, or a haunted house? Does it take place at night, in the morning, at sundown? Is it raining or snowing? Is it foggy? We give credence to story and character when backgrounds are believable. Don't try to make them up. Check your reference to make certain that backgrounds are correct historically. A simple schematic can be helpful if your story takes place in a particular place for an extended period of time. It'll give you a sense of space and distance so you can move your characters from one place to another. Read the script carefully. If you're writing the story, do the script completely before you start to draw. If you'd rather not write, use a sequence from your favorite book and illustrate it. I want to design this page so that the last dramatic shot will be the most effective, and I'm going to devote most of the space to it. And I'm going to have 3 panels to begin with that will lead into this, and then the rest of this space will be used for the dramatic shot. I'll start out by a long shot showing the arena. There's a small door in the wall here, and my hero has entered in here. This is the Colosseum. I'm going to be showing a whole bunch of people in here, and what I'm doing is merely making the vaguest suggestions for composition purposes and to make sure that the flow of panel-to-panel sequence works properly. Now, from this long shot, I'm going to go to this shot of my hero angled from the ground. So the perspective on my character is like this. I'm not bothering with anatomy or anything. I'm looking just for proportions. This is a door starting to open. Now, our hero, close up, he's looking in this direction. Serious, intense, worried. What I'm doing is planning from panel to panel to panel. In this panel, he has an expression on his face that forebodes a problem. What is the problem? Problem is the lion. My hero is standing right here. Now, why did I decide on this angle? Simple reason is that if I want to show that my hero is being menaced, then the menace has to be larger. Vary your angles so that pictures will not become stilted or boring. Angle from above or below, close up or long shot, past an object in the foreground. These devices will make your page more interesting looking. Build your story to a climax with impact. Pacing is important. If every panel is frantic and energized, then the story's climax may be less impactful by comparison. Clarity of storytelling is all important. That's the main job of the penciler. Here's a quick introduction to inking, the use of pen, brush, and ink. Don't forget to lightly shake the bottle and stir the ink before use. Ink has a tendency to separate when left standing any length of time. Practice your inking by placing tracing paper over some of the drawings in your course book. Ink the drawings with pen and brush. But remember, if this is your first attempt at inking, don't be discouraged. Practice is the key to success. Your ability to do penciling will increase as a result of your experience with inking. I don't suggest that you practice by inking over comic book pages. Original art is reduced in size by more than 30%. That's why your course book is 11 by 17 inches. Now notice what I'm doing. I'm not drawing precisely what I have pencil. I'm refining the drawing as I go along. I'm putting a heavier outline here so that I feel that it's okay to do it with my brush. But if I want a more regulated line, I will do that with the pen. And make sure that when you're inking that you're just inking on the surface. Don't dig in, or else you're going to find that you're going right through the paper. You'll snag it every time. Just relax. Allow the tip of the pen just to hit the surface of the paper. Now, if I want some more detail, I'll go back to my croquis, because the croquis gives me a real fine, steady line. Placement of lettering is also part of the penciler's job and responsibility. Use of the Ames guide and lettering with the B6 and B5 nibs are helpful experiences for the penciler as well. After the ink dries, erase all extraneous penciling. Use the opaque white paint to correct any inking errors. Take your time with your drawing. Improvement does not occur overnight. Drawing every day for an hour or two is much more beneficial than drawing a full day only once a week. Hold on to all your sketches. Don't throw any of them away. Put a date on them all. It's a lot easier to recognize your improvement in your work over a period of weeks rather than days. Well, that's about it for now. I hope you've enjoyed working with me as much as I have with you. And I'm sure it's helped you improve your work, perhaps even more than you realize. Keep this video and course book a part of your valuable tools. Continue going over and over the material, and you'll be surprised how much more you'll pick up by repeating the instructions and advice I've already given you, and by practicing. It really depends on your motivation as well as your own personal effort, so don't stop now. I hope you'll stay in touch with me and keep working hard so that someday you'll realize your ambition to become one of us, a cartoonist.
This course is devoted to just one aspect of comic book work. If you'd like to expand your knowledge in other areas of comic book creation, check the back of your workbook for a list of other courses in the series. Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to working with you again.